to 6,939 133 A-12 10 8.3 lost 1964, crashed on approach to Groom Dry Lake due to hydraulic system failure. 60 to 6,940 134 M2180 123.9 on display at the Museum of Flight, Seattle, Washington. 60 to 6,941 135 M2195 152.7 lost 1966. Total for all aircraft 3,017 5,080.99 on display, 6 lost. Timeline, edit. Major events in the development and operation of the A-12 and its successor, the SR-71, include the 16th of August, 1956, following Soviet protests about U-2 overflights, Richard M. Bissell Jr. conducts the first meeting on reducing the radar cross-section of the U-2. This evolves into Project Rainbow, a bid to prolong the aircraft's operational life through a package of modifications called Trapeze. These added wires and paints impregnated with tiny iron ferrite beads and ECM systems. The modified U-2s were called Dirty Birds. Ultimately, the program failed to substantially reduce the U-2's RCS, leading to the decision to develop a new aircraft with stealth characteristics. December 1957, Lockheed begins designing subsonic stealthy aircraft under what will become Project Gusto. The 24th of December 1957, first J-58 engine run. The 21st of April 1958, Kelly Johnson makes first notes on a Mach 3 aircraft, initially called the U-3, but eventually evolving into Archangel I. Kelly noted in his A-12 diary, "I drew up the first Archangel proposal for a Mach 3.0 cruise airplane having a 4,000 mi, 4,600 mi, 7,400 kilometers, range at 90,000 to 95,000 feet, 27,000 to 29,000 m." November 1958, the land panel provisionally selects Convair Fish, B-58 launched Parasite, over Lockheed's A-3. The A-3 was an unstaged, non-Parasite, aircraft that cruised at Mach 3.2 at 95,000 feet, 29,000 m. The land panel favored Convair's design, which had a smaller radar cross-section than the A-3. On the 22nd of December, Convair was instructed to continue Fish's development and to plan for production. While Convair struggled with aerodynamic issues, Lockheed pursued its own efforts on high-speed, high-altitude reconnaissance designs, evolving from a 4 through a 11. The first 3 configurations, a 4 through a 6, were smaller, self-launched aircraft with vertical surfaces hidden above the wing. The aircraft used a variety of propulsion schemes that included turbojets, ramjets, and rockets. None met the required mission radius of 2,000 mi, 2,300 mi, 3,700 kilometers, leading Lockheed to conclude that maximum performance and low radar cross-section were mutually exclusive. The A-10 and A-11 configurations were larger aircraft that also focused on performance at the expense of radar cross-section. Lockheed submitted the more refined A-11 at the next land panel review. June 1959, the land panel provisionally selects the A-11 over Fish, instructing both companies to redesign their aircraft. In July, the land panel rejected both the Convair and Lockheed proposals. The Convair Fish used unproven ramjet engine technology and would be launched from a modified B-58B Hustler, which was cancelled in June. The susceptibility of the A-11 to radar detection was considered too great. On the 20th of August, both firms provided specifications for their revised proposals. The 14th of September, 1959, CIA awards anti-radar study, aerodynamic structural tests, and engineering designs, selecting the A-12 over rival Convair's Kingfish. Project Oxcart established. The A-12 design, a combination of their A-7 and A-11 submissions, emphasized low radar cross-section, extremely high altitude and high-speed performance. Earlier, on the 3rd of September, Project Gusto was concluded and Project Oxcart, to build the A-12, was begun. The 26th of January, 1960, the CIA formally placed an order for 12 A-12 aircraft. The 1st of May, 1960, Francis Gary Powers is shot down in a U-2 over the Soviet Union. He safely ejected and was turned over to Soviet authorities. A well-publicized trial followed and he was sentenced to 10 years deprivation of liberty, serving 3 years in prison before being exchanged in 1962 for Soviet spy Rudolf Abel. Upon return he was debriefed extensively. The 26th of April, 1962, first flight of A-12 with Lockheed test pilot Louis Skarke at Groom Lake. The previous day, it had made an unofficial and unannounced flight, in keeping with Lockheed tradition. Skarke flew the aircraft less than 2 miles, 3 km, at an altitude of about 20 feet, 6 meters, because of serious wobbling caused by improper hookup of some navigational controls. Instead of circling around and landing, Skarke landed in the lake bed beyond the end of the runway. The next day, the official flight took place with the landing gear down, just in case. The flight lasted about 40 minutes. The takeoff was perfect, but after the A-12 got to about 300 feet, 90 m, it started shedding all the pie slice fillets of titanium on the left side of the aircraft and one fillet on the right. On later aircraft, those pieces were paired with triangular inserts made of radar-absorbing composite material. Technicians spent 4 days finding and reattaching the pieces. Nonetheless, the flight pleased Johnson. The 13th of June, 1962, SR-71 mock-up reviewed by USAF. The 30th of July, 1962, J-58 engine completes pre-flight testing. October, 1962, A-12's first flown with J-58 engines. The 28th of December, 1962, Lockheed signs contract to build 6 SR-71 aircraft. Earlier in the month, on the 17th of December, the 5th A-12 arrived at Groom Lake and the Air Force expressed an interest in obtaining reconnaissance versions of the Blackbird. Lockheed begins weapons systems development for the A-12. Kelly Johnson obtained approval to design a Mach 3 Blackbird fighter forward/bomber. January, 1963, A-12 fleet operating with J-58 engines. The 24th of May, 1963, loss of first A-12, #60-6926. The 20th of July, 1963, first Mach 3 flight tracked by MSQ-39 radar on an RBS train stationed at the Army Depot at McAllister, OK. The A-12 flew above 83,000 feet, at 2,250 miles per hour ground speed. The 7th of August, 1963, first flight of the YF-12 with Lockheed test pilot James Eastham at Groom Lake. June, 1964, last production A-12 delivered to Groom Lake. The 25th of July, 1964, President Johnson makes public announcement of SR-71. The 29th of October, 1964, SR-71 prototype, #61-7950, delivered to Palmdale. The 22nd of December, 1964, first flight of the SR-71 with Lockheed test pilot Bob Gilliland at UF Plant #42. First mated flight of the MD-21 with Lockheed test pilot Bill Park at Groom Lake. The 28th of December, 1966. Decision to terminate A-12 program by June, 1968. The 31st of May, 1967, A-12s conduct Black Shield operations out of Kadena. The 3rd of November, 1967, A-12 and SR-71 conducted a reconnaissance fly-off, codenamed Nice Girl. Between the 20th of October and the 3rd of November, 1967, A-12s and SR-71s flew 3 identical routes along the Mississippi River about 1 hour apart with their collection systems on. The results were inconclusive. The A-12's camera had a wider swath, but the SR-71 collected types of intelligence the A-12 could not of a good quality. However, some sensors would typically be removed to make room for ECM gear. There was little difference in range. The SR-71 carried more fuel. The A-12 had a altitude advantage of from 2,000 to 5,000 feet, 600 to 1,500 m, over the SR-71 at the same Mach number, being a lighter aircraft. The radar cross-section of both aircraft in a clean configuration was relatively low. The SR-71 in a full sensor configuration was somewhat higher due to its larger size and was appreciably larger again with the side-looking radar antenna installed. The A-12 was designed to optionally utilize one of 3 different types of high-resolution cameras, the highest of which provided a 63 mm, 72 mm, 117 km, wide continuous swath of 1 foot, 13 m, resolution. The SR-71 had the simultaneous capability for photography and ELINT. Its imagery was 1 foot resolution of 2 separate 5 mile, 8.0 kilometers, swath wide strips positioned up to 19.6 mi, 31.5 kilometers, apart on either side of the aircraft. The 26th of January, 1968. North Korea A-12 overflight by Jack Weeks photo locates the captured USS Pueblo in Changjiahuan Bay Harbor. The 5th of February, 1968, Lockheed ordered to destroy A-12, YF-12 and SR-71 tooling. The 8th of March, 1968, first SR-71 #61-7978, arrives at Kadena AB to replace A-12s. The 21st of March, 1968, first SR-71, #61-7976, operational mission flown from Kadena AB over Vietnam. The 8th of May, 1968, Jack Layton flies last operational A-12 sortie, over North Korea. The 5th of June, 1968, loss of last A-12, #60-6932, during functional checkout flight, FCF, flown from Kadena. Jack W. Weeks became the second and last CIA pilot killed in the line of duty during Oxcart and is so honored in the Book of Honor at CIA headquarters. The A-12 had a radio telemetry system called Birdwatcher, monitoring the most critical aircraft systems and transmitting data to ground monitoring stations. Following aerial refueling, the ground station was informed via Birdwatcher that the starboard engine exhaust gas temperature was in excess of 1,580 degrees Fahrenheit, 860 degrees Celsius. The fuel flow on that engine was less than 7,500 pounds, 3,400 kilograms, per hour, and that the aircraft was below 68,500 feet, 20,900 m. Several attempts to make contact were made without success. Monitoring continued until the time that the aircraft's fuel would have been depleted. The aircraft was declared missing 520 mi, 840 kilometers, east of the Philippines and 625 mi, 1,000 kilometers, south of Okinawa in the South China Sea. The loss was due to an in-flight emergency. To maintain security, the official news release identified the loss as an SR-71. An intense air and sea search was conducted, but no wreckage of Article 129 was ever recovered. It was presumed totally destroyed at sea. The birdwatcher system provided the only clues to what happened and was the basis for the accident report. It was ascertained that a malfunction involving an engine over temperature and low fuel flow on the starboard engine had contributed to a catastrophic failure and subsequent aircraft breakup. The 21st of June, 1968, final A-12 flight to Palmdale, California. See SR-71 timeline for later SR-71 events. Variants, edit. Training variant, edit. The A-12 training variant, 60 to 6927 titanium goose, was a two-seat model with two cockpits in tandem with the rear cockpit raised and slightly offset. In case of emergency, the variant was designed to allow the flight instructor to take control. YF-12, edit. Main article, Lockheed YF-12. The YF-12 program was a limited production variant of the A-12. Lockheed convinced the U.S. Air Force that an aircraft based on the A-12 would provide a less costly alternative to the recently cancelled North American Aviation XF-108, since much of the design and development work on the YF-12 had already been done and paid for. Thus, in 1960 the Air Force agreed to take the 7th to 9th slots on the A-12 production line and have them completed in the YF-12 interceptor configuration. M21, edit. See also, Lockheed D-21. The M21, a two-seat variant, carried and launched the Lockheed D-21, an uncrewed, faster and higher-flying reconnaissance drone. The M21 had a pylon on its back for mounting the drone and a second cockpit for a launch control operator forward/officer, LCO, in the place of the A-12's Q-Bay. The D-21 was autonomous. After launch, it would fly over the target, travel to a predetermined rendezvous point, eject its data package, and self-destruct. AC-130 Hercules would catch the package in midair. The M21 program was cancelled in 1966 after a drone collided with the mothership at launch. The crew safely ejected, but LCO Ray Torek drowned when his flight suit filled with water after landing in the ocean. The D-21 lived on in the form of a B model launched from a pylon under the wing of the B-52 bomber. The D-21B performed operational missions over China from 1969 to 1971, but was not particularly successful. Accidents and incidents, edit. 6 of the 15 A-12s were lost in accidents, with the loss of 2 pilots and an engineer. The 24th of May, 1963, 60 to 6926. Article 123, crashed near Wendover, Utah. The aircraft was flying a subsonic engine test flight when it entered a cloud, pitched up, and went out of control. The CIA pilot ejected successfully. The investigation found that cloud vapor had formed ice in the petard tube, causing the airspeed indicator to show an erroneous reading. The aircraft pitched up sharply and entered an unrecoverable stall. The pilot was wearing a standard flight suit for this low-altitude flight, and did not look suspicious to the truck driver who recovered him or the Highway Patrol office where he was taken. The press was told that a Republic F-105 Thunderchief had crashed. The 9th of July, 1964, 60 to 6,939, Article 133, was lost on approach to Groom Dry Lake due to a complete hydraulic failure. The 28th of December, 1965, 60 to 6,929, Article 126, was lost on takeoff from Groom Lake due to incorrect installation of the Stability Augmentation System, SAS. The 30th of July, 1966, 60 to 6,941, Article 135, one of the two drone carriers, was lost during a test flight off the California coast. The pilot, Bill Parks, and launch control engineer Ray Torek ejected safely, but Torek drowned. Article 135 was operating 300 miles from the California coast to carry out a test launch of A-21. The aircraft was flying at Mach 3.2+ when the crew made sure that the Mach 8 engine on the D-21 had the required airflow. The drone was launched, but the D-21 engine failed to start and it slammed down on the launch pylon, causing the mothership to pitch up. The pressure from the Mach 3.2 airflow ripped the fuselage forebody from the wing platform. The crew were unable to escape at this high speed but managed to eject as the forebody tumbled towards the sea. The pilot was picked up by helicopter from the sea, but the LCO drowned. The 5th of January, 1967, 60 to 6,928, Article 125, was lost during a training flight. The pilot, Walter Ray, ejected but failed to separate from his seat and was killed. Due to a faulty fuel gauge, Article 125 ran out of fuel 70 miles from Groom Dry Lake. The pilot glided to a lower altitude to perform a controlled bailout but could not separate his parachute from his ejection seat. He was the first Cygnus pilot to be killed in an A-12 accident. The 5th of June, 1968, 60 to 6,932, Article 129, was lost off the Philippines during a functional check flight. The pilot, Jack Weeks, was killed. Specifications: A-12, edit. Data from A-12 Utility Flight Manual. General characteristics. 1 crew, 1. 2 capacity, 2,500 pound, 1,100 kilograms, payload. 3 length, 101 feet 7 in, 30.96 m. 4 wingspan, 55 feet 7 in, 16.94 m. 5 height, 18 feet 6 in, 5.64 m. 6 wing area, 1,795 square feet, 166.8 m. 7 max takeoff weight, 117,000 pound, 53,070 kilograms. 8 max landing weight, 52,000 pound, 24,000 kilograms. 9 fuel capacity, 10,590 US gal, 8,818 imp gal, 40,088 L, /68,300 pound, 30,980 kilograms, of JP7 at 6.45 pound /US gal, 7.75 pound /imp gal, 0.773 kilogram /L. 10 power plant, 2 Pratt & Whitney JT11D20B, J58-1, afterburning turbojet, 20,500 lbf, 91 kN, thrust heat dry, 32,500 lbf, 145 kN, with afterburner. Performance. 1 maximum speed, Mach 3.3. 2 supersonic cruise, Mach 3.1. 3 range, 2,500 mi, 2,900 mi, 4,600 kilometers. 4 service ceiling, 85,000 feet, 26,000 m, or higher. 5 rate of climb, 11,800 foot /min, 60 m /s. 6 wing loading, 65 pound /square feet, 320 kilogram /m. 7 thrust /weight, 0.56. See also, edit. 1 Lockheed D-21. 2 Lockheed CL-400 Suntan. 3 Saab 36. Related development. 1 Lockheed YF-12. 2 Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. Aircraft of comparable role, configuration, and era. 1 Convair Kingfish. Related lists. 1 List of military aircraft of the United States. 2 List of Lockheed aircraft. References, edit. 1 Carrier.